My friend demanded I lend her my car for a month, claiming, "You hardly use it." When I refused, she scratched it out of spite and bragged about teaching me a lesson. I filed a police report and texted her, "Hope you enjoy explaining that to them." I never thought a simple favor could lead to such a mess. Living in San Francisco, I rarely used my car. Public transportation was convenient, and parking was a hassle. My silver sedan mostly sat in the garage of my apartment building in the Mission District. Enter Sarah. We'd been friends since college, sharing countless memories. Recently, her car broke down beyond repair, and she couldn't afford a new one. One evening, over coffee at a cafe on Valencia Street, she brought it up. "Hey," she said, stirring her latte, "you hardly use your car these days." "Yeah," I replied, "public transport works fine for me. Would you mind if I borrowed it for a month? Just until I figure things out." I hesitated. Trusting Sarah wasn't the issue, but lending my car for a month felt like a big ask. Concerns about insurance, potential accidents, and wear and tear filled my mind. "Sarah, I get you're in a tough spot, but I'm not comfortable lending my car for that long. It's not just about trust, it's about potential liabilities." She frowned. "Seriously? I'm your friend. I thought you'd help me out." "I want to help, but maybe we can find another solution. I can drive you when you need, or we can look into short-term rentals." She scoffed, pushing her cup away. "Forget it. I thought I could count on you." The conversation ended abruptly. I felt a mix of guilt and frustration. I wanted to support her, but not at the expense of my peace of mind. A few days later, I found a long scratch along my car's driver's side door. My heart sank. Vandalism wasn't uncommon in the city, but this felt personal. I reported it to the police, providing all details. San Francisco's police had bigger issues than a scratched car, so I didn't expect much. Later, a mutual friend, Lisa, called. "Hey, I need to tell you something," she began. "I overheard Sarah bragging about teaching you a lesson for not lending her your car." I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. "Are you sure?" "Positive. She was laughing about how you'd regret saying no." That was the breaking point. I sent Sarah a text, "Hope you enjoy explaining the car damage to the police." Minutes later, she replied, "What are you talking about?" I didn't respond. The police had the report, and if they investigated, she'd face the consequences. In the days that followed, Sarah tried reaching out, maybe to apologize or explain. I ignored her messages and calls. Friendship is built on trust and respect. Once shattered, there's little left to salvage. I thought ignoring her would be enough. I figured she'd lay low after realizing I wasn't bluffing. But I was wrong. 3 days after I filed the report and sent the text, I came home from work to find a note taped to my door. It was handwritten, rushed, barely legible. "Petty move. Thought we were better than that. You'll regret dragging cops into this." I stared at it for a long time, not sure whether to be angry or just done with it. Regret? For reporting vandalism? For standing up for myself? The next day, things escalated. My landlord, Gary, called me while I was at work. He sounded annoyed. "Hey, are you trying to get us sued?" I was confused. "What?" "That friend of yours came by the building. Said she left something in your car and wanted to get in. One of the neighbors let her into the garage. She was yelling, made a scene. Someone called the cops." That's when it clicked. Sarah was trying to spin the story. I rushed home and checked my car. No new damage, but she'd left a used coffee cup on the windshield with a sticky note. "Still think you're right?" I felt my hands shaking. I took photos, printed everything, texts, the note from my door, the cup, everything. Then I went to the police again. I updated the report and added that she was now showing up at my apartment building, harassing me. At this point, I started getting weird messages from unknown numbers. Stuff like, "Hope your little snitch move was worth it," and "Not a good look ratting out your friends." I knew it was her or someone close to her. Turns out, Sarah had told her little circle of friends, and even some of mine, that I overreacted, lied, and filed a false police report because I didn't want to help a friend. She said I framed her and that she never touched my car. One person even posted something vague about snakes hiding in friends' skin and tagged me in it on Instagram. I blocked them all. The worst part? Some mutuals believed her. I started getting distant vibes from a few people I thought were neutral. A couple even unfollowed me online, and one sent me a text saying, "You could have handled that better." All because I said no. Then something else happened. I got a notice from my insurance company. Someone had filed a claim against me for emotional distress and slander. Sarah. Apparently, she'd lawyered up. The letter claimed I'd made false allegations that damaged her reputation and caused her mental harm. It was laughable, but terrifying. Even though I had evidence, the stress hit hard. I barely slept. I couldn't focus at work. My boss noticed and asked if everything was okay. I lied and said I was just tired. A week later, I got a call from the officer handling the case. He said Sarah had come in to clear her name and claimed I scratched my own car out of spite after our argument. She said you were trying to ruin her socially and financially, he added, almost sounding amused. But we're not closing anything yet. Just letting you know there's a lot of noise around this now. Noise was putting it lightly. Every time I checked my phone, I braced myself for more messages or updates. The calm part of me said to let it ride out. The angry part of me? It started thinking ahead. I started digging. I remembered something Sarah said months ago when we were catching up over drinks. She mentioned working part-time under the table at a high-end salon near Union Square. No taxes, just cash. She bragged about how she was gaming unemployment by not reporting that income. Back then I didn't care. I laughed even. Now? I wasn't laughing. I started collecting receipts. Screenshots of old messages where she joked about hustling the system, voice notes she'd sent complaining about customers at the salon, even photos she'd posted online showing her working there. Dumb move for someone supposedly unemployed. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it all yet, but it made me feel less helpless. I was tired of being painted as the villain in a story I didn't start. The next twist? My building manager, Gary, told me Sarah had filed a complaint with the property company. She claimed I was harassing her by giving out the gate code and that I was creating an unsafe environment for her. That one nearly broke me. I had to sit down with building security and go over the whole thing. Thankfully, the cameras backed me up. Footage showed her entering the garage with someone else, shouting, and leaving the coffee cup on my car. Still, it felt surreal. Like I was living in a twisted version of reality where saying no to a favor turned into a legal and social nightmare. I started carrying a small body cam when I went to the garage. I changed my number. I stopped going to the usual hangouts. I deleted social media altogether. But in the back of my mind, I kept asking, how far was she willing to go? I wasn't going to find out by waiting. So I made a plan. The body cam came in handy quicker than I expected. About a week later, I got home late after a long shift. The garage was dim. One of the overhead lights had been flickering for days. As I parked and stepped out, I caught movement near the stairwell door. I turned the cam on, just in case. It was Sarah. She stepped out like she'd been waiting, arms crossed, leaning against the wall. You know you're being ridiculous, right? She said, voice calm but sharp. You could have just said sorry and ended this. I didn't respond. I just looked straight at her, let the camera do the work. You think you're gonna win? You think anyone believes you anymore? She continued. They're tired of hearing about it. You've made this whole thing worse for yourself. Then she leaned in a little too close and whispered, you're not the only one who can play smart. I walked past her without saying a word. She laughed behind me. It wasn't funny, it was empty forced. The sound of someone grasping for control. The footage was clear. I sent it straight to the officer handling my case. Now it wasn't just vandalism and harassment, it was intimidation. But things didn't cool down. I found out she had gone to my workplace. Apparently, she'd shown up pretending to be an angry customer. Said I'd insulted her in public, claimed I was unstable, and spreading lies about her. The receptionist was confused but polite, asked her to leave. She did, but not before slipping in a complaint card and taking a photo of the office door. It didn't take long before HR called me in. Do you know this woman? I explained everything. Showed them the police report. I even showed them the garage footage. They were understanding, but the damage was creeping in. I could see it in their eyes. A smear of doubt, even with the truth in front of them. That's when I knew she wasn't doing this just to get back at me. She was trying to ruin me completely. Then I got a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Rachel, an old college friend. We'd lost touch after graduation, but were friendly back then. Hey, she said hesitantly. I know this is weird, but I got a call from Sarah last week. She said you'd been acting erratically and I should avoid you. I thought it was strange. That hit hard. Sarah was reaching out to people from my past, planting stories, spinning her version. I wondered how many others she'd contacted, how many of them bought into it. But Rachel didn't. She sounded off, she continued. Too eager to talk. Too many details that didn't line up. I figured I should hear your side. I thanked her. I didn't even realize how much I needed someone to believe me until that moment. Rachel and I started talking more, comparing notes. She had screenshots from Sarah, things she'd sent to others. One message even said, he deserves to be knocked down a peg. Sarah wasn't hiding her intentions anymore. Then, another twist. I got an anonymous email. No subject, no signature. Just an attachment. A video. It was footage from inside the salon she worked at, hidden camera style. Sarah was talking to someone, laughing about how easy it was to fake being the victim. She even said, he thinks the cops care. I scratched that thing with my keys while I was walking past. Barely even tried to hide it. I stared at the screen, frozen. I didn't know who sent it. Maybe someone from the salon who overheard her. Maybe someone she'd bragged to one too many times. But it was damning. I burned it to a flash drive, printed stills, and handed it all over to the police. This was the crack I'd been waiting for. But even then, it didn't stop. She doubled down. She started posting vague messages online again, but now she was implying I was the one harassing her, using fake accounts to stalk her. One post read, "Imagine trusting someone for years and they turn into a complete psycho." She started showing up at places I used to go, coffee shops, bars, even my gym. Not talking to me, just being seen. Making it look like she was living her life, while I looked paranoid. One time she smiled at me from across a bar. Like it was all a joke. Like none of this was real. But it was. And I wasn't done. It all came to a head at a birthday party. It wasn't even mine. A mutual friend, Danny, invited both of us without knowing the full extent of what had been going on. She knew we were having issues, but not the full nuclear fallout. I debated not going, but something inside me said, go. Face it. End it. The party was in a small rented event room at a bar in the marina. Not fancy, but cozy. Packed with people I hadn't seen in a long time. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and the tension hit the back of my neck the moment I saw Sarah. She was already there, standing near the bar, surrounded by people who'd clearly picked her side. Her eyes met mine. No surprise, no shock, just that smug little half-smile like she'd already won. But this time, I wasn't walking away. Danny came up to greet me, surprised but genuinely happy I showed. I pulled her aside and told her, quietly, that if Sarah tried anything, I'd leave immediately, no drama. Danny's face fell. She finally got it. I didn't know it was this bad, she whispered. I'm sorry. About an hour in, I stepped outside for some air. That's when Sarah followed me. You can't keep playing the victim, she said, walking up behind me. I'm not playing anything, I said without turning. You scratched my car. Lied about it. Harassed me at work, at home. What do you call that? Oh please, she snapped. A scratch? You act like I burned down your house. You destroyed my reputation because I was pissed off and made one mistake. One mistake? You escalated it every single week. You lied to my job. You lied to the cops. She rolled her eyes. No one even cares about your stupid car anymore. I do. And you will too. Because I gave them the video. She stopped. I turned then and looked her dead in the eyes. Someone sent me a video of you at the salon. Saying you scratched it on purpose. That the cops wouldn't care. Remember that? Her face went pale. I turned it in. It's over. Behind us, a couple people had stepped outside to smoke. They'd heard. One of them was Rachel, who had come with Danny. She walked up slowly, arms crossed. You know what's messed up? Rachel said. You let people believe he went crazy. You made people cut him off. Sarah's voice cracked, defensive now. I didn't ask anyone to do that. No, Rachel said, but you didn't stop them either. You wanted it. You wanted him isolated. I was angry, Sarah said, now visibly shaking. He made me feel abandoned. Like I didn't matter. I said no to lending my car, I cut in. That's all I did. You made me feel small, she said, tears brimming now. You were always the one who had their shit together. Everyone liked you. You never needed help. And the one time I needed something from you, you shut me out. I stared at her, stunned. So you tried to destroy me? She didn't answer. Just stood there, eyes watery, breathing hard. Her makeup was smudged, and for the first time, she didn't look powerful or in control. She looked broken. But I didn't feel sorry. Not anymore. Danny stepped out at that moment, clearly aware something was happening. What's going on? She asked, looking between us. Rachel filled her in. Everything. The scratches. The false claims. The job visit. The video. Danny's face fell with every word. You came into my party and kept this going? She said to Sarah, stunned. I invited you both because I thought maybe Jesus. Sarah turned away and walked off without a word. Nobody followed her. The rest of the night was weird. Awkward, tense. People whispered, others stared. Some came up to me and apologized, saying they believed her at first and didn't know the whole story. I appreciated it, but the damage had already been done. Over the next few days, things unraveled fast. Sarah went quiet. Deleted her social media. Ghosted the few people still defending her. One mutual friend said she left her salon job abruptly. The police followed up once to confirm receipt of the video and told me charges could be pending, but it was still in process. I didn't push. The emotional fallout hit like a slow wave. I felt numb, then angry, then just tired. I kept replaying everything, every red flag, every time I'd brushed off her behavior as stress or a bad day. I started asking myself if I'd been too forgiving for too long. Rachel checked in regularly. So did Danny. Even Gary, my landlord, left a note in my mailbox that said, "You did the right thing. Hang in there." Eventually, I moved. Different part of the city, closer to work. I got rid of the car too. It never felt the same after all that. Every scratch reminded me of what happened. What was lost? I think about Sarah sometimes. About how a friendship that spanned nearly a decade fell apart over a car. But it wasn't about the car. It was about control. Entitlement. Bitterness she'd let rot inside her. I've learned a few things since. Saying no isn't betrayal. Silence doesn't make you noble. And some people aren't hurt, they're hateful. It's not your job to fix them. I'm not sure if I'm hopeful yet. Or even okay. But I'm not hiding anymore. That's something.